Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of
Not Fighting.
And I'm Tyler Bishop, and this is my wife Jena Bishop. Nice to meet you, the internet. This is episode 10, right?
Ooh, yeah.
I think it is. I think it's 10, unless we release them out of order. In which case, it's
this is 10.
Oh, they're wrong. Yeah, we're wrong about it.
We're not like, we're okay with admitting when we're wrong.
Mm-hmm. One time we might do this live. One time.
Maybe.
One time.
Just one time, not like someday, just one time.
In front of an audience, maybe, like a studio audience. Like we could get...
We'll just get like 3 friends.
Yeah, and their
come
kids.
Sit on our couch. And their kids. It's good.
If we could have like an audience of like 5 people to watch the podcast, who would you choose?
Oh, I have no clue.
Hickson, Scotty Nelson, Helson, just because I think he'd be interesting in the mix.
To watch it? Why?
I got a lot of Gracies. You know what? Just for the hell of it, Half and Scotty Nelson being in the mix there is nice too. Who's somebody else that's going to throw everything off? Seth Daniels. I think that's an interesting crew. That's my pick for 5 people in the studio audience.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't know if we're talking about that, but anyway.
It's very inside baseball too, because it's like most people in jiu-jitsu probably know, like, well, I guess probably most people know who Hickson is. Probably maybe know who Helson is, like you're part of the Helson Association. How much of the Gracie lineage do you think most people know about jiu-jitsu? I mean,
I get confused about it all the time still, so.
It's biblical.
I ask you about it a lot, and I'm like, wait, which one is their dad?
I think
is that their cousin? Or
you could do
are they like sister wives? Like, I don't know.
I feel like you could do a drunk history of like the start of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it would be epic.
Yeah, it would probably
you'd make
be good.
So many people mad, but like, I've thought about it. We're
not going to do it. We're not going to do it. You can't do it under an alias.
Now that I've said it, like I'm going to have like a mask on, and people are like, it's clearly him. He's got the tattoos.
Look at the tattoos.
He didn't wear just a sleeve shirt or anything. He's not even trying to hide it.
Moving on.
Anyways, moving on. Speaking of like doing jiu-jitsu, like what percentage of people know about this? Like, I feel like the vast majority of the population, like even though jiu-jitsu is becoming more mainstream, it's still not like people know exactly what it is. Yeah. Like people, when you tell people you do jiu-jitsu, I feel like you get a lot of weird reactions. And this is like universal. It doesn't matter if you're a kid or, like an older adult.
Yep. It happens. It's just, that's part of it. And, we're going to talk about today some of the, I guess like pet peeves or like, just the classic things that people will say or assume when they find out that you do jiu-jitsu. I'm going to preface that with like, these things annoy me so much that there's a lot of times that I just don't want people to find out that I do it because I don't want to have the conversation, and or it's just that, or they find out you do it, they might be super interested in what is that and like, let me hear all about it. And if you don't train or know anything about jiu-jitsu, it's just like, I don't want to really talk to you about it. It's just, you won't understand and you just don't get it. And like, you're going to annoy me more than we're going to have a productive conversation.
Very much in the opposite
I'm
way.
I'm going to be like smiling and...
Yeah. I just feel like want the conversation to move on,
yes.
Realistically.
Yes.
I do so many different things in jiu-jitsu that it's like, I just don't want to touch on it because it's like completely unrelated to how you know me if we don't do jiu-jitsu together,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, for you, like, you have, like, I always tell people you have a real job. And so for, being, like, the CMO of a company, and if you're talking, like, to other really, like, what's the word I'm looking for here?
I don't know. Career professionals?
I don't know. Yeah, just,
people that don't
professionals, I guess, that, career professionals, I guess, is a good way. But... They might even perceive you in a different light where it's not even like a lesser. That's not what I mean. Like they look down on you, but it's just like, oh,
my perception of it is either people think I'm like a dork, that I'm like out someplace like stick fighting on the weekends, or that I'm like basically like in some kind of fight club. I do fight club, and they're like, I could see that. he seems like a Fight Club guy.
Look at
where
that
it's
beard.
like he's too buttoned up during the week, and then on the weekends he just like wants to feel.
Tyler Bishop, aka Tyler Durden.
Yeah, jeez. No, but so when people ask you about like doing jiu-jitsu, it's kind of like classic. I feel like everybody kind of has like a different thing, and I feel like when you first start jiu-jitsu, you're kind of like proud. You're kind of like,
I mean, that's one of the things is like you talk about. I guess there's other people like. The people talk about maybe CrossFit or different things like that, and they're like, oh, they're such a cult, like, you know, that's like the stereotypical things, like if somebody does CrossFit, you'll know within the first 5 minutes of meeting them because they're going to let you know about it. But jiu-jitsu is a lot like that too, especially for the lower level when you're so excited and it's so new, and then even when I don't want people to know, you still kind of feel like you, like, it comes up and it's just like I feel like I need to tell you, but I also don't want to tell you. And because if you're just talking to like, you know, my neighbors, because we're still quarantined and I've been talking to my neighbors a lot because we go on a lot of dog walks and everybody is out, and we do have a really good neighborhood and everybody's super friendly. So I like my neighbors, but you know, the first thing that, you know, Karen hears is every time, you know, you're talking to Karen and then you tell her you do jiu-jitsu, or she finds out and she's like, oh yeah, my 5-year-old nephew is a black belt in karate. And, you know, we have all, if you are trained at all for a minute, you know, and you've heard this, and it's just like, you know,
you have two choices at that point.
They're Taekwondo black belt, and it's like, like it's not the same, and you want to correct them, but you also just don't want to have that conversation. So you're like, oh yeah, like that's cool.
Early in my life, I was what I would describe as a young go hard, and
AKA douchebag.
And I felt the need to always like be able to prove myself, like a lot of young males. And I would think to myself, nope, actually, jiu-jitsu is so much different than Taekwondo. Taekwondo is a scam. And your nephew is probably just like spending money and just like got a colored belt. What I do is basically like the most brutal form of wrestling and grappling, and it's really important.
Mine's like legitimate, and
it's like legit.
Like,
let me show you. Come here. Let me touch you. Feel how strong my hands are? Well, that's because my fingers are all broken. But just, but what I feel like now as I've gotten older, like I just want to avoid the conversation so much when somebody's like, oh yeah, my nephew's a Taekwondo black belt. I'm like, cool, yeah, we're the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, and that's 100% what you do, just because you don't want to explain and you don't want to have that conversation. So if you're like new to jiu-jitsu and you're just figuring out that that's something that people are going to tell you, don't try and explain it to them. They don't care. They won't get it. Just, move on.
And
you can, maybe the only thing you can say is like it's closer to UFC.
And it's like, do you want to say that? I mean, some of you out there are like, yeah, that's better. Think about it.
But that's another thing that like people say, you know, it's like when you tell them you do jiu-jitsu and they're like, yeah, and they start like doing like this kind of stuff, and it's like, no, like we don't do karate chops, and we don't
no
throw.
Hitting.
There's no like real striking, and
I'm always like, it's like more throws, like more grappling, but there's like submissions or like.
It's like wrestling, but in your pajamas.
It's like, and then people are like, oh, like the UFC, and you're like, kinda.
I mean, I guess, but like, you know, when they're on the ground like that, but we don't hit people.
And then they're like, oh, well, my neighbor Ron, he's like a 9th degree sensei from Japan, and he's like a world champion multiple times over in jiu-jitsu, and you're like, I don't think. I mean, this Ron guy, I don't think it's jiu-jitsu. He's like, well, it's something like it's jiu-jitsu, kung fu. It's kung jitsu. Kung jitsu is that one? And I'm like, yep, that's one.
Sure. Yeah,
and then they're like, yeah, he's real big into it. You guys might know each other. It's like, probably do. He might be like more important than me though.
Yeah, and that's always funny when they're like, oh yeah, like my friend's son does jiu-jitsu. He's like a world champion. He's really good. They've been, you know, they're like, he's really good, and then they like tell you his name, and you're like, I mean, maybe, like, I don't know. And it's, you know, if you've trained long enough, you know that jiu-jitsu is big and growing, but it's also very small and kind of a tight-knit community. So if he was somebody, you would know.
Throwback to our episode on like false accomplishments, but it's like how many times have somebody told you and I like, oh, like our friend Bradley, he's a world champion, he's won everything, and you're like, never heard of him.
No,
never heard of him. I do the broadcasts for all the large major championships, never heard of him. And then also she competes and is one of the top female black belts in the world. Also never heard of him, so you'd think we'd see him or hear his name, but we haven't, so that means he's not important. And also, like, may not even do jiu-jitsu. Like, I don't know.
He won the in-house tournament at his, like, multiple times, and so he's, like, a world champion of the in-house tournaments.
Yes.
I mean, okay, we're being salty, so let's move on. But that happens a lot, and it's super annoying, and I know that you've all been there because it's just, like, you want to correct people because you're like, no, it's not the same. Like, you're wrong. Like, but also, why am I going to waste my time?
And I think that leads to like the next thing where it's like people either compare themselves or compare others to like you, where like, I think people just have like, they think of martial arts as magic or something. I think maybe just because of like movies. I think this is an older
and like
thing.
How many times have you seen like, it's like those videos like on YouTube where it's like some guy and he's like obviously scamming people and got people involved where he's just like, they run at him and then he's just like this and then they just fall over. And so like I think people get like that kind of like idea of, martial arts in general. And it's like there's a lot of people that are scam artists.
Look at movies, look at Hollywood. Like how many movies do you see where somebody like hits somebody in the head and then they're unconscious, or they like choke them and then they're like dead? And some movies may be dead.
Yeah, they choke them until they pass out and then like they're dead. Or like it's not even that they're dead; it's that they lay there for like 5 minutes. And it's like we've all seen people go unconscious. When you get choked out,
like the first thing you do is you like wake up and you're just like you don't
start fighting.
Yeah, it's like that guy's gonna fight back. Like.
Yeah, I mean,
she choked me out in the garage the other day.
I was just thinking about
that. She got mad at me for two different reasons.
No, but I wasn't mad at you at that time. I was laughing. I've gotten mad at you before. One other time I choked you unconscious because I was like, why aren't you fighting me harder?
Yeah, I'm unconscious because I needed more oxygen in my brain.
But the other day when it happened, when you came to, I was like, are you okay? Are you okay? And then you
just grabbed her sleeves.
Tried to start fighting me right away. And I was like laughing at then because I'm like, obviously he has no clue what happened. And then you told me that you were like scared. You thought you had a heart attack or something. So you wanted to play it off so I wouldn't be worried.
So she chokes me unconscious in the garage, and I literally am like waking up, and she's like putting her hands on me, and then I'm like, oh, I just need to get them sleeves. I've had a heart attack, and I don't want to concern her, so let me just play Spider Guard.
Okay.
If I'm playing Spider Guard good, she's gonna be like, he's fine. He can't have had a bad heart attack, right?
And then you knew when I started laughing that you had gone out.
Then I was like,
then we both laughed about it, but it was quite. And you're like, how did that even happen?
Yeah, you were in the mount, and I was like, you didn't have. I didn't even think you had both hands in the collar.
I didn't. I'm that good.
I'm a black belt, y'all. Got choked out with one hand from the mount.
Oh. That kind of actually leads into our next point, which is that's another thing that when people find out as a couple we train and that we're both black belts and they're like, oh, but if you're sparring for real, who's gonna win if you're really sparring? Can she beat you? Can she beat you?
I remember when you won the Worlds at brown belt, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, because we lived in St. Louis at the time, did an article on you, and they sent a photographer out. The guy took a lot of pictures of us, and he had us rolling. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. I was in the Biz Journal, and the guy was like, do a jiu-jitsu stance. I was like, there's not one. And he's like, maybe put your hands up. I was like, we don't punch. And he's like, what would a jiu-jitsu stance look like? And I'm like, well, like a tiger? I don't know. It's like, it's exactly what I thought. Tiger. Damn it.
Tiger paws.
But, I remember... for the photo shoot, like we were just kind of rolling, and I was just like setting you up so you could get arm bars.
Yeah.
And then the person was like, "Well, so are you guys like really rolling?" I'm like, "Well, we're like actually
kind of flowing.
This is what jiu-jitsu looks like. Like this is what grappling is like." And he's like, "Yeah, because she's kicking your ass." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, like I'm trying to set her up so you can get some good pictures." He's like, "Yeah, because you think you're like a lot bigger than her, and you'd be able to beat her, but she's kicking your ass." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm letting her." And he's like, "Kicking your ass." And I'm just like, "All right, man, like, come here, tiger claws,"
But that's something that, like, unless you train, you don't really understand that, like, the differences between, like, men and women in training. And I always tell all the women to, like, I'm like, I've trained him well. Like, he really knows how to roll with women. Like, he's done a great job because he was my training partner basically from white belt till forever. And so I think it's one of those things where it's like, he's not giving me anything. Like, I would be mad at you if you were just letting me do stuff, but you're not using 100% of your attributes, right? You're trying to rely on more on technique, not putting all of your weight on me or using all of your strength. But at the same time, we've talked about this recently. It's like, if you just like you can't let me do something, because if you let me do something, then like I'm already ahead, because technique, like if I get ahead in the technique, like I'm gonna be winning. But he's also not trying to use all of his attributes.
I would liken it for men out there. Like I see so many guys like get it wrong when they describe it, where they're like, I see a lot of dudes like do the thing where it's like they sandbag against women, where they just like give them everything and make it like too easy, and then so
annoying.
That's a really common thing.
Don't do that, because it's not benefiting anyone.
And then you have the opposite philosophy, and I've seen this too. It's rarer because I think it feels weird.
Yeah.
But like the guys that are like, I'm just gonna treat her like a normal person. I'm gonna just like whatever. And it's like, you're 180 pounds, she's 120 pounds. Like, that's weird. Like, would you treat a 120 pound dude the same way? Like, I don't know. Anyways. Yeah. But the thing,
they probably do. That person probably does.
Yeah. And that person is probably avoided by it.
Probably train with children the same way that they would train with somebody in their weight class.
Like, I would liken it to like when you play a video game and you set it on like the hardest difficulty, knowing that like you're probably not gonna win. That's what I would liken it to. Is like,
I don't really know what that means.
It basically means like you're gonna set it on a level to where it's really, really difficult for you to like. Well, I don't know. It's unique because it's like it's difficult for me to roll with you, because technically you can beat me in most of our games that we play. Yeah. Because we play a lot of similar things. You're a little bit like sharper.
But I like to make it dirty.
And so like, unless I just decide I'm gonna like, basically like you said, like use all my strength and attributes to be kind of sloppy in some ways. Yeah. Like that's the only way I beat you in some positions.
Which that happens a lot when I'm training with guys that are bigger and stronger than me, and it's like you start getting the better of the position and you start getting ahead of them, and they will like just kind of hulk out on you, and because they're probably have a lot of technique as well, Sorry, my dog's barking. I don't know. Somebody's at the door. I think it's probably our Postmates.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we got food coming.
Thanks, James.
Cash. Shh. Man, this puppy.
So we're back between the dogs and Postmates. We had to hit a cut. Listen.
We're back from a commercial break because hopefully we'll have commercials soon.
Coronavirus. Anyways, so we were talking about like how like dudes hulk out and all that kind of stuff, but I think it's just like another one of those things about jiu-jitsu where it's like you have friends or people that like wonder like, oh, how do you guys roll together, or like you roll with men, and then just like then you have
that's something that people are like, oh, do you just train with girls or do you train with guys too? And it's like, well, I train with both. Like, when I started training, there wasn't a lot of women training, and I didn't really have any other women to train with at the academy, so I was primarily training with men. But I also it's nice to train with women, but you do with both, because I think as a woman it's really beneficial to have both options, because men make you like tighter in your technique in certain ways, because you can't out power or like be more athletic or like
But
strong. You can't be
thing
stronger
is
than,
like that's
in a lot of
what
ways.
people think is like they think like, well, like what about Sam? Like I don't know if it's a girl you're talking to, she'll be like, my boyfriend Sam, could you beat him? And it's like, yeah, probably. Like
yeah.
You know, like if he's big or something, like and he hits her, then like yeah, I mean maybe you get lucky, but like she's also trained stand up before. Like she's probably gonna be able to close the distance, and if she does, like he might hurt her, like might slam her or something, but she's gonna probably finish that fight.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, that's another thing. It's like you have guys all the time that want to, like, they find out and they're like, especially for me, just being a woman, it's like they find out that you fight or you train jiu-jitsu, and then they automatically have to, like, show some ego, and they're like, oh, Cash. Thank you. Sorry. But yeah, like when guys find out that you fight or you train jiu-jitsu, I'm sure this goes for like especially like MMA women as well. They feel like they need to like insert themselves and like make sure that that like they think that they can still beat you. Like, but I could still beat you. Like
they want you. It's like weird because I've seen it happen where it's like they want you to know, and then also like if you're around other people, it's like they want other people to know, as if. Like you telling other people, they're going to be like, oh, because I was questioning it, but now that he's so confident, I'm pretty sure that he would win in a fight or whatever, you know?
Yeah, and it's such a funny thing to say. Like we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I was like, okay, it's such a weird thing for somebody to like feel the need to say. Even if you thought that, or if I thought that, like I would keep it to myself. Like I'm not gonna like say that out loud, because it's like, well, what are you expecting from that? Like you think like, are we gonna fight right now? Like, do you want to try and prove this at this moment? Because, I mean, I will if you want me to, but I don't really think that's what you want. I think
of a boyfriend that one of your sisters had once, where you attacked him in a parking lot, like after he.
No, because that was the greatest, and I do have the video of that. If people want to see it, we'll post it, because I don't care. But no, he kept talking trash to me like all like weekend. We were like at like it was like a holiday, so we were together a lot.
It's a classic example of what you're talking about, where the dude like wants you and then other people, and then maybe even himself, to be like, listen, if we were to fight or grapple or whatever.
He was kind of tongue in cheek, like he was kind of teasing about it, but like I think he thought like I'd have a chance, you know? And so he came up behind me when I didn't even know he was around, and he tried to like choke me, and he doesn't know how to choke. So I got out, and then he just took off running, and he was like sprinting away from me because he was like freaking out about what was going to happen next. And then I remember I was just like, I'm gonna let you go, but I kept like kind of scaring him the rest of the night, like pretending I was gonna come at him, but like so he was like kind of hiding. And then later, it was the next day, we all went out to dinner, and we drove, and when we dropped them off, we circled around the house or around the street and came back, and I snuck in the back door and attacked him, and he was like, no, Jena, no. He's like freaking out.
Yeah, it was
and
sad.
And then he was like trying to like defend himself, and I just choked him. It was fun. It was fun. It was all good fun. So,
your sister's boyfriend. Really, you beat up a lot of your sister's boyfriends that have like kind of. Yeah, it's kind of funny actually. There's like 3 different ones that I can think of. But one of them in particular is like the point of like one of the things I think is always interesting, which is like when you have that friend that's always like, like, so if I started training jiu-jitsu, like how long till I tap you out? And it's like, I'm a black belt, man. So like, I don't know, maybe never. And they're like, pfft. Yeah, right.
They think it's going to be like in a month.
And they're like, and then they'll pick out like another of your friends that does jiu-jitsu, and they're like, well, like what about Jim? Like how long till I can tap Jim out? And I was like, I don't know, maybe never either. He's got like 5 years ahead of you. Like he's getting better. You're getting better. You guys are the same age.
It's the thing that you always talk about, where it's like, if you train jiu-jitsu, like you practice fighting like
every day. Maybe every
like,
day. At least once a week.
That's the most beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, is you get to like the practical application happens, and is the most fun part, and that's what, why it's so addicting. That's what we get to do every day, sometimes twice a day. So what makes you think somebody just off the street who has maybe hit a heavy bag, like for an exercise?
They have.
or had friends hold mitts from him in the like backyard or something like
No, like
that.
patty cake.
And like, so like, I practice fighting every day. What makes you think that you're going to come into this and then be able to, you know, beat me?
It's this weird confidence, and I think that it goes away immediately when you start training jiu-jitsu because you're like, oh no, like how terrible am I? And I think that's why a lot of people don't stick with it. Is I think they're just like, it's going to be for forever till I'm good at this.
Oh
thing.
yeah, and that, like we always say, it's like it's one of those things. It's like you start it, you know that you suck. And you know that you're okay with that, and that motivates you to try and
you're
get
like,
better.
I gotta come back tomorrow.
Like,
I gotta do better than that.
I need to be here as much as I can because I gotta get better. Like, or you're like, I suck. Like, I can't handle this.
I don't want to do this.
I got like this is not.
This is gonna take
not
forever.
For me. Yeah.
Like,
I feel like there's very few people like in the middle of that.
Yeah. Once you start, the problem is like there's a multitude, the majority of dudes walking around out there that are like, I was just born to fight. I don't know that, and I've never been in a fight, but something tells me I would be a good fighter. I know that about myself.
Okay.
It's like this weird false confidence, and I think that that's like where a lot of this stems from. Is like people have like a real misunderstanding about like what a trained like martial artist or trained like person that practices like fighting or grappling other people every day is capable of. It's like why you think your 9-year-old nephew or whatever might have magical powers or like can flip people over without seeing them, or like your neighbor's like a 1 billion-time world champion even though he's got like a beer belly.
I mean, honestly, like when I was in high school, I didn't know jiu-jitsu, I didn't do anything, but my one of my best friends, he was like a state champion wrestler. And I was like, I'm pretty good at wrestling. I think I can handle myself. And we would play wrestle all the time. And he was just like, okay, whatever, Jenna.
And that's the thing is like, I remember, you know, there was an old guy, Tommy, that I used to work with a long time ago when I was in college. And this old guy, and he was like a Kempo karate or something like that, black belt.
And he, like, you know, in the legitimate sense of that.
Like he'd trained Kempo karate for like decades and decades.
Yeah.
He was old as shit. He's probably dead now. Anyways, shout out to Tommy if you're still alive. Yeah, I love that guy. But he like had such a false sense of like reality, and he trained martial arts forever. Like he'd even taken like a jiu-jitsu seminar, and he's like, got it. But he never actually rolled. You could tell because it's like he just watched the jiu-jitsu like practice it, and he was like, I know arm bars. I'm just gonna not get on the ground. Done. Meanwhile, like,
ask
palm
anybody
strikes, shin kick.
And say, ask anybody who's fought Habib.
Yeah.
How that worked out for you.
I mean, forever, like, that was the thing in MMA. Is like you'd have guys early on say, like, I have anti-jiu-jitsu or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And or they'd be like, 6 months of sprawl training, and that guy's going to, like, beat everybody or whatever. And it's like, then you still have, in modern-day jiu-jitsu, specialists like Damian Maia that are just, like, dominating. You have guys like Ben Askren that dominate with wrestling. It's like, it's because grappling can be such a dominant art.
Yeah. It would be a shame to underestimate it.
And I think that that's what happens a lot of times with women. And I think that's why we have so many examples from this one.
Yeah.
When you have women coming through, it's just like men either feel like they need to justify themselves, or they immediately are like, ooh, I'd love for her to put me in a triangle choke. I'd love for her. That's a weird one. I'm not good at English. Well, I feel like the guy that says that, it's not going to be.
What?
I'd love for her. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd love
like, if you think that in your head, that makes sense.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
I'd love for she. But, I mean...
No, like, there's a lot of that. Like, that
you've avoided some of that
like,
because we're always, like, linked together in jiu-jitsu. But I definitely know... I mean, you got one weird... You've gotten a couple weird pictures.
I mean, if you're a woman on, like, social media, you're going to get a lot of weird things. And, like, I mean, the weirdest thing that I've gotten is a guy sent me a selfie of a butthole pic. I don't even know how to explain it.
Not a butthole pic. It's, like, 90% sure it's his butthole.
No, but he was, like, bent over in a mirror, pulling his cheeks apart with, like, a camera
this?
like this.
Wait
I'm
a minute.
Like,
no.
Why?
No.
What
was
the point? No. Stop. And it sucked because I had I opened it without realizing, and then I closed it immediately. I was like, what? Oh. And then I was like, I gotta open it back up to like block this guy, to find out who he is, to block him. It sucks so bad. But I mean, that was the grossest thing that anybody sent me. But like, you have guys always are like, oh, like, do you want to roll? Or like, you know, like making comments about like, and making it sexual. And, you know, jiu-jitsu, when you're training, there's like nothing sexual about that. Even though I can understand, like, you can sit back and look at the positions and be like, yeah, because as like a women's instructor, and especially dealing with a lot of women who have been like assaulted or like coming back, like trying to like using jiu-jitsu as a therapy for them, it's like, I understand that looks really uncomfortable, and it's very intimate and close contact with people.
It looks that way, but
it's like when you're training, it's like, no, we're trying to beat each other. Like, I'm just trying to like submit you. Like, I'm trying to like choke you.
And without like going deep in the conversation, you and I had a conversation about this the other day where we were just talking about, like, you and I have been dating forever. We've been married forever, and we've rolled, like, I don't know, literally probably thousands of times with each other.
I don't even know
and
how
it's
many.
like, we've never been rolling and been like, you know what, let's just stop rolling right now because, like, I can't help myself. I'm just like so into you.
Yes.
It's like,
that's not where your mind's at. And if it
different.
is, like, you should probably not train, because you're a perv, and that's gross.
Yeah, and I would say that's like
there's a time and a place for that kind of stuff.
I would say that would be a really odd case. So like women all the time like are always like, I don't know about guys, like such a weird, awkward position, I feel like. And you're like, listen, if there's ever a dude that makes you feel really uncomfortable, like when you're drilling or even just training, like that dude, there's something off with him, and you need to tell everybody.
Yeah, let everybody know so that your professors and the people that you trust can, hopefully you have people that you can trust and like protect you and keep you safe. Like, I always tell women, even if it's not like a weird thing like that, like if there's somebody that you just don't feel comfortable with, or if there's something that like that person's just too aggressive or something, like you should be in a scenario where you can talk to your professors and be like, hey, can I like just maybe not partner up with this person because whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
And I would say the advice extends to everybody to some extent. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Like, if you're a dude, or anyone, I don't think you should avoid somebody. It's like, let's say you and I are like the same weight or something, and you just beat me.
Yeah.
I don't want to, you don't want somebody to be like, I don't want to train with them because they're rough with me or something. It's like, no, man, you need to toughen up. You need to learn to deal with like losing. But
if there's somebody that is, you know, maybe like hyper aggressive or like, it's just kind of like I don't know, like rude to you, or just like I don't feel comfortable.
Weird. Where you're like,
hey,
that guy
man,
pinches my nipples every time we roll. Matt Smith. But you know, like,
never done that.
You don't want somebody that's just like, you know, makes you feel weird or something like that. So
no, you don't want that. Like, it should be a safe place and like a comfortable place for you to train and just to get better and like learn how to defend yourself and to, you know, whatever you're trying to get out of jiu-jitsu, it should be that.
And I feel like anytime if you're a female, you're doing jiu-jitsu and you're like out in the dating pool and some dude's like, oh, I'd love for you to put me in a triangle choke or whatever, you should do it. You should put him in one and be like, do you like it now? I didn't think it's not what you thought it was it? Anyways, wake up and go home. But for real, like, I just see dudes like all the time say
they're just so douchey, or the opposite of that, like finding out like, I would never let my woman do that. And I've had guys tell me that, like, if you were my woman, I would never let you train with other guys.
Your husband's cool with that?
I'm like, yeah, of course, because when we're at the academy, most of the guys that I train with and are like, they see me as another training partner, and a lot of times I'm just one of the guys to a point where I'm like, I mean, I don't know if I'm okay with this, but I've been called like, hey dude, like, I'm not a dude, like,
guys will tell you things where you're like, I am a girl, like, don't tell me that.
Yeah, like guy talk, and I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I'm glad that you feel comfortable enough to talk to me. I don't, but maybe not.
I don't know, maybe see a doctor.
But I mean, but like I said, I really actually I guess I like the fact that I'm looked at as one of the guys in a lot of ways, because it just
you're
makes
not
training,
discriminated against.
Yeah, it makes training
good. Feel good.
Yeah, it makes like the training better and the environment better, and
I think that's one of the things too, where it's like there's so many things in jiu-jitsu where you can understand them really well if you're there and you don't have to describe it, but like to people on the outside, like they just have these like weird perceptions. Like the last one that I'll mention is like one of the ones that I think I hear all the time, and it's like somebody's like, oh, I could never do that because what if I just went crazy? Or I'd worry about somebody just like going crazy.
I'd worry about just like, I'd freak out, you know, if somebody tried to hold me down like that, I think I'd just freak out and I'd go nuts on them. It's like, well, if they're in that position on you, like you're not going to be able to freak out on them.
Well, first of all, like what you're thinking of is freaking out and going nuts. Like I would love to be able to do that so many times when I'm being held down. I would love to freak out and go nuts and just like get out of it. And
Bushesha can do that. Like maybe that's like one person.
There's one guy that can do that.
He's the best ever.
But it's like you want to be like, you should do jiu-jitsu, because like if you think that you could do that, you're gonna find out immediately that you can't.
You can't.
And if you can, like, we can make some money. I mean, we can make hundreds of dollars together doing jiu-jitsu.
That was like, it's kind of the same thing. Like people are like, well, I think I'd just be too claustrophobic. That's more like the woman's like perception. Like I would just get too claustrophobic. I'd start freaking out, but like panicking, you know? And my sister is extremely claustrophobic, like extremely, to the point where I would torture her with it as a child. It was like a way I could, torture her.
You're a good person.
I mean, it's sisters. Like I'm the oldest. I have to like
shout out to Bree.
You know, I gotta put them in their place. I did a lot of things to her that she would be scared of, or she was to make her scared of me. But
no wonder no one knows where she is anymore.
Stop. But she trained, like, and she like, she stopped, but she was doing well, and there was never a moment where she was freaking out or like feeling like, oh my God, panicking. I mean, and that actually was like a really like something that I was worried about when she told me she wanted to try it. I was like, oh, I don't know, because you do get really panicky and like close, tight, like when you're confined or constrained.
But
and
what you think is going to happen is not what's going to happen.
No,
and like
not at all.
That's the thing about jiu-jitsu, and it's just like everybody kind of starts with these weird preconceived ideas about like martial arts or what they think jiu-jitsu is, or even just like what they think grappling is.
Yeah.
And then it's like that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu in general, is like you have to practice, you have to do it every day, because like the reality of it is so much different than what you would assume. Like, I mean, it even applies to when you try to learn online or see a move. You're like, cool, I see how that works. And then you go to do it, and you're like, why, whenever I do it, I don't get the back?
I'm missing something. Like, how did that,
I dislocate my shoulder every time I try to do that one. And then somebody shows you, and you're like, oh, it's different.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, as you progress and you get better, you're able to watch things and kind of understand a little bit better, because you know the details you're looking for, because you're gonna be like, that's not right, but then watch again. But when you're lower level belt and you're the person seeking those YouTube moves out, like you're not doing it right.
So that's the thing.
Or some of them are just tricks that are gonna work
the longer you do jiu-jitsu, the more I think you get like kind of like apathetic to these things and sort of learn how to deal with them. But
I mean, it's to the point where we really only have friends in jiu-jitsu, and outside of that, I dread going to family functions where people are going to ask me about training, because they all know, and not all my family, because some.
I heard you're doing some big AC/DC tournament.
Yep, I'm going to an AC/DC concert and competing on their stage. It's weird.
Is that a big deal? Like, what? How's it different from the other tournaments that are around here? And like, it's kind of different. It's the same.
It's just hard to explain it, because it's such a subculture.
How's that DUI working out? No, I'm just kidding.
Probably though.
Yeah.
For your family, not mine.
Well, it's split. But anyways, shout out to my family. Anyways, that's the point. I think jiu-jitsu in general is one of those things that it's like, unless you do it, it's really, really hard to understand it. And I think there's probably a lot of things in life that are that way. And you just got to be cool with it. Don't feel the need to justify it. Don't feel like the need to over-explain it. Yeah. Like, they're not going to get it anyways.
They're not going to get it, and they don't care. And that's like the thing that you have to understand is they just don't care. People, when they say things, like, even if you say, hey, how are you doing? Most of the time, most people don't care how you're doing. They just want to hear good, and it's being polite and cordial and making small talk. So don't try and make it something more than it needs to be.
What I think is funny is, like, I said the exact same thing to people, like, at jiu-jitsu, when they ask me, like, what do you do for a living? It's like, I run a company, and then they're like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm our CMO, and then they're like, oh, what kind of company? And then you're just like, Technology. Because it's like really? It's like no, but the truth is more complicated.
Yeah, and also, if you're the person that asks those questions, not really caring about the answer, just stop. You don't have to be that polite to me. I don't care.
Yeah, don't be polite to people.
I'd rather talk about the weather.
And that's the takeaway from this entire show. Don't be polite to people and don't care. Don't care.
Yeah.
Or care less.
Care less and live your life.
Care less, live your life. Anyways, we want to thank everybody for joining another episode of Not Fighting. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. If you have a chance, leave us a review on those platforms. It's really helpful. You can say whatever you want. You could just, I don't know. If you know another foreign language, put it in a foreign language. That'd be weird. But, I don't know. I'm pretty sure just making them is good. But, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that.
I mean, English is better. But that's it.
I mean, if you want
else,
to say
Jenna?
something mean, do it in a different language so I don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to get all these terrible, horrible things written to us in, Turkish.
Is that
No, we're big in Turkey. Trust me. Shout out to Turkey. Anyways, thanks, everybody, for joining another episode of
No Fighting.